Welcome, this is Peter Voogd, founder of RealVIPSuccess.com and creator of the Game Changer System for Excellence. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about not being like everybody else. And really, I want to encourage people to stop being like everybody else, which is the majority, and start leading the way. Start differentiating yourself. And this is something I'm very passionate about. And I'm going to go through 3 simple case studies today and offer a couple tips on how to really separate yourself from the majority and not be like everybody else. Because the worst thing you could do in college, out of college, when you're 25, 30, 40, is be like everybody else and conform. And I'll tell you what, if you do that, your chances of succeeding or having a great life or a great impact or influence is slim to nothing. So I'm going to share 3 case studies with you, but I want to share a quote with you first that I've always respected and enjoyed. I heard this when I was 18 years old, and it really changed my perspective. It says, if you were setting out to accomplish something and you didn't have any role models to emulate, you could get a good start by looking at what everybody else is doing and not doing it. So what that means is if you really want to be successful, look at what everybody else is doing and do the exact opposite. Okay? I was actually driving probably about a month ago just down the street, and there was a Subway on one side and a McDonald's on the other side. And clearly Subway is healthier, better for you, gives you more energy. Yeah, there's some things that aren't good, but in general it's way better than McDonald's. McDonald's drive-thru was packed. In the drive-thru was like 7 or 8 cars back, and Subway was empty. Are you kidding me? That's just a simple example. I'll give a lot more, but let me go through some case studies, okay? Number 1 case study. 60% of college students can't find work in their field after college, and the average price of college is skyrocketing, and the average income a student makes after graduation is plummeting. It's at an all-time low. According to Huffington Post, college tuition is up 27% over the last 4 years. And I'll tell you what, they're graduating on average with $35,000, I wrote it down, $200 in debt. So that's a scary stat right there. And instead of being like everybody else or just going to college, getting a degree, and thinking that takes care of all your answers, no, you got to develop certain skills that are needed in this new economy. Let me give you a couple of them. You need emotional resilience. You need mental toughness. You need the ability to adapt to change. You need the ability to give value or create results. You need sales skills. You need scheduling and priority skills. Especially 2 big ones, communication and networking. See, these are skills a lot of times you don't learn in college but are needed more than ever. You see, everything has changed the last couple years. Everything has changed. And you need these skills to separate yourself from the majority. Interesting stat, quote, from Apple, and it might be disrespectful. I think it kind of is, but Apple said this, and it's just the reality of what they said. We shouldn't be criticized for using Chinese workers because the U.S. has stopped producing people with the skills we need. That's a scary stat right there. So differentiate yourself. Learn skills that are needed to thrive. Second case study, 71% of people hate what they do and are actively disengaged at their work. So 71 out of 100 people are not liking what they're doing, and when they're doing it, they're not engaged in it. So they spend a majority of their life, whether they're 23 or whether you're 40, it doesn't matter if you're 19 or 50. You should like what you're doing, and you should not settle. And you should find what your strengths are. You should find out what you're good at, what you can thrive at, look at long term and see if it's something that you can benefit and something that you could thrive in and build a lifestyle around, right? So if you develop these skills, you'll be able to pick and choose so you're not just in a sea of applicants like everybody else. The last case study is the amount of money saved or amount of money you have when you're 65. There's a study, and of course, how many of you guys would love to be financially stable when you're 65? Everybody, right? At age 65, reported by Social Security Board in Washington, D.C., 69% of Americans are dependent on relatives, family, or charities. 29% are still working. This is when you're 65. And 2% are financially independent. 2%. Now, if you want to be like everybody else, that's how you end up. Don't be like everybody else. Be different. Be the 2% that actually thrives and has money saved and is really enjoying their life, not praying every day to be retired, right? And here's the sad part. If you asked 100 people if they're going to be successful when they're older, like if you ask 100 18-year-olds, every single one of them will say yes. They're going to say, oh, of course I'll be successful. Of course I'll be successful. Of course I'll thrive. Of course I'm going to succeed. Of course I'll have a nice house. No. The reality is 2 out of 100. Why in the world do they think they'll be successful? Because there's entitlement mindsets. There's no guidance. There's all these people saying that it doesn't take hard work. No, the reality is you have to tell yourself now matters more than ever. Develop these skills and differentiate yourself. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of what I mean by separate yourself from the majority. Most people sleep in, so don't do that. Most people eat unhealthy, so don't do that. Most people make excuses and argue for their limitations versus argue for their potential. Don't do that. Most people are stressed out. Don't do that. The majority are in debt. The majority are overweight. The majority gets divorced. So don't do that. Okay? If you want to be successful, stop even thinking about doing what the majority does, because they're always wrong. And you can either be playing it safe or you can be successful. You have to pick one of those, right? So I'm going to give you three things that you can do right now to really help separate yourself from the majority, because that's really what we're talking about, okay? So number one, like I said, differentiate yourself. Figure out what makes you different than most people. Everyone has skills and strengths, and everybody has genius. And I don't care if you're 17 listening to this, 25 listening to this, or 60. What makes you different? How can you do something different, or how can you position yourself differently if you're a company, if you're a business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a sales professional? How can you focus on being an expert versus being a sales rep? Or how can you focus on having a business that adds value to more people than other businesses? Here's a big question. Why should people do business with you than any other business, including doing nothing? You should answer that question. What makes you different than everybody else? And there is something different about you. You are unique. Everybody is unique. And you can get good at whatever you want to get good at, but you have to focus on it and be relentless in studying it and absorbing it and getting good at it. Number two, entertainment versus education is killing people. The amount of time you spend on entertainment versus education makes a big difference in your future. So if you're spending 50 minutes in entertainment to 1 minute education, you're not doing well, okay? Guaranteed you're broke, or guaranteed you're stressed out. Successful people spend time in education more than entertainment. Education is listening to a nice audio, or reading a book, or studying success, or going to seminars, or going to mastermind groups, or working with people that are successful, versus watching TV all day, listening to music, going on a bunch of vacations, partying, going out, drinking, whatever. I'm not saying that's bad, but if you do a lot more of that than investing in yourself and thinking about your future, then you're going to be stressed out. So switch your EVE ratio. Make sure you're educating yourself just as much. If you just switch the ratios from educating yourself more than entertaining yourself, you'll see your success and results go way up immediately. And number three, shift your circle of influence. You've heard me say this before, but hang out with people who challenge you, hang out with people who encourage you, and who raise your standards. You're either hanging out with people who are letting you off the hook, or you're hanging out with people who are holding you accountable. And that determines where your future turns out, or where your future ends up, because the people around you is who you become. So get serious about who you are and where you want to go, and realize the only way to get to your goals is differentiating yourself and not being like everybody else. Don't conform, don't be like everybody else, and be unique and think about what makes you special, because everyone has unique skills and abilities. So hope this helps. Would love your comments below. Share if you feel like it'll help people, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.